7 o'clock Andover time. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. We'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
To
flag
the flag
of the United
of the
States
United
of
States of
America
America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty and
liberty
justice
and
for all.
justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. I'd like to introduce this meeting by just kind of explaining a little bit about what we're doing here today. For those of you who may not be familiar with the process, any of you that have been following the um, budget process for the town, the school districts so far, probably understand pretty well where things are. Tonight is our annual budget hearing as required by our charter. What this meeting does is it provides the Board of Finance one last opportunity to get input from the public in advance of our last meeting, where we will make any last minute changes to the recommended budget for the town. Um, as most of you probably know, once the Board of Finance makes its recommended budget, that goes to the town budget meeting. And that is actually where the town budget will be decided, that will move forward to referendum. So there's several steps yet before this budget is final. The big, probably most important one is the budget meeting. And then, of course, finally the budget vote, at which we'll vote on the budget gets moved on to referendum. So tonight's meeting really is an opportunity for the Board of Finance to present to the residents what we have kind of gone through so far and where we've landed in terms of the recommended budget. We can answer any questions you may have, listen to any further input you may have, and we'll take that into consideration as we finalize this recommended budget to go before the town in the town budget meeting. As was alluded to in some of the preliminary questions I got before we started, I'm actually in Germany on business, so I'm about 6 hours behind. I'm speaking a little softly so I don't wake up my colleagues in this rental we have. So I hope you can all hear me clearly. So just wanted to make that point and apologize if I'm speaking a little more softly than usual.
It's fine. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay. What I'm going to be doing tonight is basically going through the high level view of the town and school budgets as they stand today. Okay, if anybody's again been following the process, you know there's been a lot of work done by both the RAM Board of Education and the AES Board of Education to come up with their recommended budget amounts. What the Board of Finance does at that point is take the recommended budget amounts from the departments, the various operating and capital budgets that Eric Anderson as the town administrator submitted. We then review those, come up with an overall recommended budget. I'm going to present the high level of this budget today. The actual budget documents are all on the town website. If you want to get into the detail, it's all there, and we can certainly answer any specific questions tonight. But I probably we won't be going through line by line on every budget item. Okay. All right. Okay, with that being said, do we have anything from our fellow Board of Finance members? Any input or questions about the process before we get started? Okay, Amanda, can you give me the ability to share my screen, please?
Yes, you should be all set.
Okay.
Go ahead and give it a try.
Okay, you should be all seeing the slideshow now? Okay.
Looks good.
All right, good. Thanks. All right, so what I'm going to do is probably kind of go through each of these sections in turn, and I'm going to stop from time to time, and I guess we may ask Eric to clarify some things. We'll also give the opportunity for the board members, if you have questions or clarifications that you'd like to ask as we go through, comments that you'd like to make, that's fine too. Um, I It's a little bit awkward with the Zoom meeting to take individual questions as we go through this, but if you do have them and you want to ask them, there's two ways that you can do that. Zoom allows you to put some information into a chat. There is a chat function in Zoom. That would probably be the best way to do it. You can also do it like a hand raise function, right, Amanda? You're going to be looking out for that. Can you do that? Okay. And that'll give us the opportunity to kind of take a break and answer any questions in midstream. Um, Barring that, what we'll do is we'll go through this presentation. It's about 14 slides long. It's not super detailed and it's not super long, but just if as we go through there, just make a note of any questions you have. I'll be happy to flip back through there and answer questions as we go along. Once I'm done with the presentation, we're going to go into the public comment uh, uh, portion of the meeting, where we'll call on the public one by one and give you an opportunity to ask any specific questions or provide any input you may have at that time. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, just a little bit about the budget history. This is all done basically according to town charter and state law. So there's a very specific process we go through here. Um, First of all, in December 2020, all the town departments begin to develop their budgets for the fiscal year, which begins July 1st of the year. Um, in January and February 2021, the administrator submits his capital investment improvement recommendations to the selectmen. We also have a preliminary town budget for the operating budget that goes to the selectmen. The RAM board presents their preliminary budget to the RAM, probably the superintendent presents it to the RAM Board of Education, and the Board of Education works on their budget. And then the Andover Elementary Board of Education presents their preliminary budget. So there really are four significant components to the town overall budget. And that's the beginning of the process there. In this case, the mid-February, the Board of Selectmen reviewed the town's operating and capital budget as developed by Eric and his team over at the town. The budget originally overall included a 7.8% increase, which was a pretty significant mill rate increase of 338.31. Okay, we'll be going through that, kind of the more detailed part of that a little bit. Okay. In March of 2020, the Board of Finance received this budget. We began our review session. Okay, so that's really where the Board of Finance got involved and started asking questions and moving things around, expressed our concerns, and gathered gathered more information from the various departments and AES and RAM. The RAM budget was modified at that time. That's kind of a totally separate process, obviously, from the Board of Finance or the Andover school district budget process. And in April, the Board of Finance voted to approve this budget for public hearing. Did I miss one here? I didn't. So the RAM budget, the Board of Finance public hearing was set for today, and the town budget meeting was set for May 6th. Okay. So we, again, as I mentioned last week, that the primary opportunity for the residents of the town to actually weigh in with their voice about updating or changing the budget for final budget that we're going to put before referendum for the public vote is going to be on the budget meeting set for May 6th. Okay. On May 6th, as noted here, the Board of Finance is going to present the budget to the town. And this is our recommended budget. And then the town will vote to put it, or the town meeting, that's going to get voted to or pushed forward to the referendum for actual public vote as part of the actual voting process. Okay. Just as a point of information, I'm not sure we recorded it here, but uh, there was a couple of steps there too with the AES vote where there was reductions and changes made to the AS budget as well. This is just a chart that kind of presents an overall view of the town's budget. So you can see exactly where the dollars are flowing. It's split between three main constituents. In the upper left corner, you can't see this doesn't actually, it does have my zoom windows hiding the legend. In the upper left corner is the town's kind of operational and capital budget. So all the yellow part is the town. That's 27% of our recommended budget. The blue in the upper right corner is the Andover Elementary School District. That represents about 32% of the overall spending for the town. There's a continually decreasing orange slice there, which is the Andover Elementary School debt. And the fortunate thing is that's the last time we're really going to see that on this slide because the debt's going to be retired after this year. So that piece is getting smaller and smaller. Okay. And then the big, larger gray portion at the bottom, that is the RAM middle school and high school budget. That's 40% of our overall town spending. So just want to make an important comment here. This is a process that is not dealt with through the Board of Finance or the Andover Board of Education. This is a process that's handled separately. The RAM Board of Education votes on a final recommended budget, and then this is handled separately through a vote in the towns. So it's really separate from this process, but it's an important one that the town people should be paying attention to because it is a significant, in fact, the largest single portion line item in our town budget. Okay. All right. So just talking a little bit about the RAM budget. The proposed operating budget is overall is a 1.83% increase. Now, it doesn't mean that our percentage is going to be going up. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but overall, that's what the RAM budget is looking like this year. So slightly less than a 2% increase overall in their budget. Their capital budget, however, is an 11.77% increase, about $300,000. Okay. The percentage, however, that's actually going to be that budget that's going to have to be paid by the Andover residents is going down. So that's the good news. So in effect, what we're end up going to have is we in Andover are actually going to have to pay less out of our town taxes this year for RAM than we did before. But it's not because their spending is going down. In fact, it's going up, even though the pupil uh, population, the students isn't really changing, or it's not going up, but their operating budget is going up. But as you can see in that third bullet point there, the main reason that it's going to go down for us is that our percentage of students is actually being reduced. The overall population is coming down as well. So the actual per pupil spending at RAM is going up, but because our percentage of the students in Andover students representing a smaller percentage of the town's or of the RAM's population. That's why our proportion is actually going to be reduced. The other thing that was helpful is that RAM had a surplus at the end of last year, and I think at the urging of many of the town residents and some of us from the Board of Finance and elsewhere, they voted to return that unexpended funds to the town. So that helped offset the increase that they were planning for their operating budget for next year. So, which I think was the appropriate thing to do. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Andover Elementary School budget. So went through several phases here, but the ultimately the Board of Education requested a final budget of $4,122,000. The Board of Finance voted to reduce this slight amount, 4.5%. I'm sorry, by down to $4,078,000 $8. It was basically a straight percentage reduction we took out of there. This represents overall a 4.5% increase from the 2021 budget. So there's a significant budget increase that Andover Elementary School had requested. Um, they then reduced that, and the Board of Finance reduced it further. Okay, we're not going to talk a lot about the specifics behind that. I know Valerie's on the meeting today. I saw her earlier on the participant list. But I think we'll want the AES district Valley to kind of explain where their budget is going probably at the May 6th meeting. Okay. Last bullet point here, as I mentioned earlier, the debt service on the bond. That was the borrowing we did for AES several years ago. Remains at 93,000, but as noted here, the debt will be retired in the next year. We're not going to have to deal with this next year, so that's the good news there. Okay, let's talk about the town operating budget specifically. So a few major factors that are operating to or that are going to affect the town's and town budget in a decrease, or they're going to cause decreases in the town spending. And then we'll talk about the ones that are going to affect or basically effect increases to the town budget in a minute here. The overall decrease from 2,536,000 to 2,483,900. So there's an overall decrease in the operating budget of about $52,000. Okay. As you can see from the next bullet point, this is mostly driven by a reduction in salary and benefits. So I think the Board of Selectmen, working with Eric Anderson, have worked pretty hard to find some efficiencies within the government operations such that they were able to combine various positions. We work closely with the school district to develop a combined town finance department. That had significant benefits, not only in savings on salary, but also, I think, in streamlining the town's financial operations. So good move there by AES in the town. The tax collector's position was reduced to part-time, and we combined the assistant town clerk and the building department administrative functions. Also had a significant impact on reducing the cost for the town. And then the senior coordinator role was assigned to the assistant assessor on a long-term basis. We also on the Board of Finance voted to reduce the snow removal budget by $10,000. We kind of went back and forth on that in our last meeting. So I just want to emphasize that it's not our intent to reduce the services necessarily, but what we were trying to do is better reflect an average cost on an annual basis based on expected snowfall. What that doesn't leave is it doesn't leave the town any contingency spending. So that means that if we do have a heavy snowfall year, we're going to have to find that funding either through the contingency funds or some other mechanism, because we do not expect it. We want to reduce our services to the town, and we still want our roads plowed and things maintained. Okay, a couple other things, a few other bullet items that actually had a significant increase in the way the town budget looks. The first one is a little bit can be a little confusing, this AHM Youth Services. So from the town's perspective, when you looked at the town budget, the AHM Youth Services is increasing from $46,000 to $88,000 roughly. And the reason for this is not because they're spending or services went up that much. It's just because what was decided was that rather than having the services provided to the town and the services provided to the elementary school and the services provided to RAM, all billed out to those three entities separately, that the AHM Youth Services would present one bill to the towns in each of the served locations. So basically the budget moved from the schools back into the town, which makes sense. It's just an easier way to understand where the costs are. It provides one budget line item instead of having multiple budgets and, kind of being tucked into the school budgets. It's right there in the town budget. So that's why we took that action, and that's true across all three towns there. Okay. And in fact, you can see by the bullet points there, the total AHM budget decreased. It's just now that all the town is paying all the cost up front, or as we're billed. Okay. Another thing that increased our operating budget this year was we did change the public works supervisor position. It's a non-union position this year. It was changed from hourly to salary. So there were several benefits to doing it that way, and I think both the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance approved that, but it did have some upward impact on the town operating budget. Lastly, we had election-related expenses that increased significantly this year. This is primarily due to COVID and the way we had to handle some of the election processes in town. And I know that the registrars and others had to work extra and handle a lot of extra duties that they wouldn't have had to normally. And hopefully we'll be past that a little bit, but we'll see how things go. Okay, just to kind of review the town's capital budget. Now, this is separate from the operating budget. The operating budget is really what we spend just providing the basic services to the town. The capital budget is more about planning for major infrastructure or major expenses. So we have several capital funds set up, and we contribute to those funds each year. And in some cases, we use a significant amount of those funds and expend them for various purposes. So as Eric put together this presentation in detail, which I appreciate. Thank you, Eric. So he's got the capital budgets kind of broken out here and where they stem from. The capital budgets, as you can see, are derived from the town planning processes. We have the Capital Improvements Planning Committee does some work. We see first bullet there is the fire department. They've got a 10-year capital plan. I think most of you are well aware that fire equipment is very expensive. And we have to plan well ahead to make sure that we're adequately funded to take care of the aging equipment there. Similar with the public works equipment, we have a lot of aging equipment there. It gets used pretty heavily in some cases. We have to plan well ahead of time to replace that equipment. We can't just do it in our annual budgets. We have the town buildings and properties we have to maintain, in some cases make major changes to and investments in. There's the Andover culvert inspection reports, and any of you who have attended town meetings or Board of Finance meetings, Board of Selectmen meetings, we know how we have some significant issues with the town culvert and bridges, and those things just are going to need to be addressed. The DOT inspection reports on the town bridges. And we'll talk a little bit about the bridge and culvert funds in a minute. And as anyone who walks around Andover can see, we've had a lot of tree losses in the town roadways right away. ROW is right of way. That means the town has to maintain those areas. We've got to cut down those trees. In most cases, it's the town's responsibility. So we've got to kind of plan for that, be ahead of that. There's a lot of work to be done there. As anybody who's lived in Andover the last year or two knows, we've had significant storms that have caused multiple power outages, often in some cases for several days for folks. So that's a direct cause of having a lot of dead trees up that we have to take care of in town. Lastly, road maintenance and improvement planning. Again, if you've attended any of the budgets or any of the budget meetings or any of the Board of Selectmen meetings, you know that we talk consistently about the state of the roads and bridges and things in town. So. Okay, just some comments here. Again, you've probably heard this before if you've attended any of the town meetings or the budget meetings, but the town of Andover had significantly underfunded our equipment and our infrastructure for several decades. We just have been getting behind, and As we have said multiple times, we've been kicking the can down the road, and unfortunately, that's not a sustainable path. Um, so basically, what we expect is going to happen is that this is going to increase the cost of the taxpayers over the next 20 years. We have a lot of catch up to do. We have not been maintaining the roads, and as we know, if you maintain the roads, you're basically going to prevent them from degrading quickly. But we haven't maintained them, and in some cases, the degradation is happening very rapidly, and that's where we are right now. As the bullet points list here, we got 42% of our roads miles are either rated poor or failing. We have two bridges over the Hop River that are going to need replacement ultimately. There's been some work and planning done around that, but as you all know, that is not going to be cheap. A couple of other smaller bridges in need of significant repair. Three large culverts are rated poor or failing, and they're going to need replacement. And as Derek's noted here, this is going to cause future road closures. The DOT is going to one of these days tell us, hey, look, we have to close this road. This is just, cannot, it's just not safe anymore. And that's going to be a big impact if we have that happen. That's pretty clear. And then lastly is Eric's got a number here. Andover has between 750 and 1,000 dead trees in the right of way, in the town's right of way, that you just have to be removed. So that's what's driving a lot of the capital expenditures. So this is where we've got it broken out in this year's budget. You can read through there, and we're just going to kind of take a quick look. Some big ones for tree removal, and then yellow is road improvement. And then we've got several of the bridge funds broken out separately. The Bunker Hill Road, separate bridge and culvert funds. So public works equipment's a significant one at 13%. Okay. So that just kind of gives you an idea where their breakout is. So this is where the funds are going. What this is, these numbers are not the amount of money that's in any of these funds. What these numbers represent is the amount of money that in this year's annual budget is going to be contributed to these specific funds. So number one on there at the top, you can see is what we're calling the community center. This often gets referred to in town as the senior center. Many of you are probably aware that there's been some preliminary architectural work planning done to develop the senior center on the town property between AES and the town hall. So this is the planned annual contribution to the community center fund. There's obviously a lot more that's going to have to go into that in order to actually break ground and move forward with construction of the community center. But this is our planned contribution for this year. Fire department equipment fund, $75,000 there. Public works equipment, $110,000 planned. Road improvement, $300,000. That's a significant piece, but it's again, it's going to have to be done. Tree removal, $50,000. Bunker Hill Bridge, $120,000. Bridge and culvert fund, $100,000, and the building maintenance, $45,000. So that's the breakout of the capital funds in this year's planned budget. Okay. A little bit of light reading for everybody. So this is our budget summary. So there's a lot of columns here, but the key thing is the left-hand column, which is the budget by entity. So breaks out our main contributing groups. We have the Andover Elementary, the Andover Elementary System or School System, the debt service budget, that $93,000 we talked about, RAM, the town budget, and then we'll also talk about the fund balance. And at the bottom, of course, we have the taxation. So it's really, it's a lot of columns here, but I think what's relevant really is the third from the right, the column that says fiscal year 2021 to 22. That is our recommended budget for this fiscal year. column to the right of that, this is difference in dollars. So that's the actual change versus last fiscal year. I'm sorry, yeah, the actual dollar change for last fiscal year. And then the difference is in the far right from on a percentage basis. So I'm just going to review those three columns quickly. The first item was the Andover Elementary. Again, Board of Finance is recommending a budget line item of $4,078,008 for this year for the Andover Elementary School. That's $175,000 increase roughly, or about 4.5%, as we talked about earlier. The next line item down is the Aes Debt Service. Again, this is the last year we'll see this, but it's $93,000 to retire that bond for the borrowing that was done for the Andover Elementary School. The next line item is RAM. Again, the town doesn't have any direct control over this budget other than the town residents voting on this budget. And of course, our representatives to the RAM Board of Education who participated in the vote to pass this budget on to the town. So, sorry, Rob, did you have a comment or Regis? No, okay. And again, you can see that that's at $5,119,757. It's a $108,000 decrease. But as I mentioned earlier, that decrease is not because they're actually cutting costs. Their costs are actually going up. It's just that Andover's share of those costs is going down. And then next is the town budget. So the town operating and capital budgets, the total is $3,463,015. It's about a $57,000, $58,000 increase. So about 1.5% roughly. Okay. Then the last line item here, not the last line item, but the second to last, is the fund balance used. So I want to make some comments about this. This is the fund balance is the unexpended fund balance is the amount of, I guess you could call it contingency money that the town of Andover has available to it. So we have a significant fund balance. It's for various reasons that we target about 10% of our overall budgets to be in our fund balance. Anything above that, we're sometimes willing to use to offset annual costs. And if you followed any of the budget processes over the last few years, you know that in I think of each of the last 2, maybe 3 years, yeah, we've used some of the extra fund balance. Was that 4, Rob? So 2, okay, yeah. I know
I
it's
think
been
it's
at
really
least
been 2. Yeah.
2 years, yeah. Yeah. Couple of big we've used the fund balance to offset spending. The problem with that is gone. We really cannot do that anymore. This has been a difficult issue, I think, for the Board of Finance to wrestle with. It basically is tapping into our savings, if you want to think about it that way, in order to pay for our spending. We have had excess money in there. If you want to think about it that way, it's a little bit of excess money, more over and above kind of our target amount of 10%. And we have elected to use that to offset our spending for the last 2 years. This is going to be the 3rd year we are recommending that, but we cannot go to this bucket anymore. That well is dry for all intents and purposes. I know most of the members of the Board of Finance would agree, I think, if not all, that we're not going to tip into that again. We just cannot do that. We've got to have the contingency funds in place to take care of any serious fiscal things that might come up, and we've got to have that ability to plan for the future. This is a tough decision to actually use this fund balance. We don't like to do it for ongoing expenditures, but we also recognize that the budget we're presenting to the town is our recommended budget for the next year. Has a significant impact, and we're trying to lessen that impact. But this is the last year we really are going to have this opportunity. It's a little esoteric stuff, but it is very important that we we recognize that this is the last opportunity we're going to be able to offset our spending with the use of the fund balance. Unless something really unexpected.
Can I add something, Mark, if I have a
Go
chance,
for it.
really quick?
Yep.
I just want to say, with respect to our capital budget, everybody probably remembers this, but if you don't, last year, when last year's budget cycle was happening, it was right in the midst of COVID hitting, and we slashed capital badly last year, in an attempt as a board to avoid a major increase in a situation where we as a board were tasked with passing a budget unilaterally. Although we did our level best to get public comment and respond to it and whatnot, at the end of the day, the Board of Finance in 2020 passed a budget on our own, which is deeply uncomfortable to a lot of us. And we tried to keep it really as low as we could. And one of the ways we did that is we really cut capital. So when we talk about these longstanding issues like the roads and the culverts and whatnot, we have kind of a long-term plan to get us caught up on those issues. And we kind of took a step back last year. So this year, we're not even really proposing a catch-up. We're just trying to get back to trend. I guess that's what I just wanted to point that out, because that's a significant portion of our budget, and that's a lot of where we're throwing that fund balance at is the capital expenditure. Using capital expenditure for ongoing kind of operating expenses is a terrible idea, and I think basically everyone on the Board of Finance gets that. And what Mark said about the fact that the fund balance has been spent down is absolutely true. We started out with something like a 21% savings level, 21% of the budget, and we were aiming to get to 10, and we're something like at 11 now, and we're just about, this is about it. Anyway, that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I think that's an important point. I think it was the expectation of most of us, if not all of us on the Board of Finance last year, that we were going to aim for a significantly higher level of spending than we actually proposed. And if everybody remembers what happened last year with the pandemic, the governor prohibited in-person voting to control spread of the coronavirus. So the Board of Finance was tasked with the unenviable duty of just making the decision. Because we didn't feel that we felt concerned about the lack of the ability of the town residents to actually vote on the budget, we were a lot more restrained in our budget than we would have been otherwise. That's a really good point. Thanks, Rob. And this is, as Rob says, really just putting us back on trend rather than, just ramping up for some new reason or anything. We had seen this coming, and just this is what we did. Yep.
I just want to mention, Georgette, I see your hand up. Are we going to get to, we're going to get to public comment again, correct?
Oh, okay.
Mark,
Thank you.
put her
Yeah,
first.
we are going to get to public comment. So,
Yeah.
and so I'm sorry, the way this displays on my screen, I can only see a few people at a time. So I didn't see Georgette, but Eric just sent me a message saying you wanted to ask a question. So Georgette, did you have a specific question you wanted to ask now, or do you want to wait till we get to the public comment?
It had to do with offsets. And I was on the Board of Finance for 8 years, and we used offsets often. And one of the theories before I was on it was that if you have too much money in the fund balance, when it comes time for union negotiations, they say, oh, you have all this excess money, so they want more. So that's another balance that you have to figure in. Yeah. But we always got money back from Andover Elementary School when Andy Managia was, superintendent, because he would get grants. And the following year after that, we would use that excess money to keep the taxes lower. So it's not something new that you're doing, to use an offset to keep the mill rate low.
Yeah, and I seem to remember there was also some reasons, Rob and David remember from being on the board, that it also makes you a little bit of a target from the state in some
Yes.
cases, right? So,
I'm
the
sorry, I
state-
couldn't hear you. You lowered your voice.
Sorry, I understand also that there's some potential impacts from, if you have too much of a fund balance relative to your overall town spending, that it kind of puts a target on your back when
Exactly.
it comes down to state grants and other reasons. So
You're right.
there's a
State,
good reason
that,
not
that
to
was a
have it,
big part of it.
not to
Yep.
have an excess fund balance there. But
Okay,
that's
thank you.
interesting. I hadn't heard that other one, Georgette. Thanks.
Okay.
Mark, you're muted.
Thanks. As I say often, you'd think after doing this for a year, right, in business and other meetings, I'd be able to remember that one. I just wanted to say we will be very quickly moving into the public comment section of this, so you'll also have opportunity to comment there. Okay, this brings us to the next, the next section, which is the mill rate calculation. Again, if you kind of direct your attention to the far right column, this is really the fiscal year 2021, 2022. This is the budget we're referring to today. Total expenditures, 12,660,772. That is the overall budget, including the schools and the town's budget. Estimated revenues on the second line. So this is, all the different sorts of revenue that the town gets from various sources. Don't have that broken out here, but there's a lot of things that that contribute to that. Fees, other grants, things like that. The third line is the use of the fund balance. As we discussed already, this is going to be 0 next year. We authorize the use of $225,000 out of the fund balance for this year. But next year that will be 0, will not be available to us. We have some abatements and exemptions that roll into it there. Adding all that in together, the total to be raised by taxes is just a little bit short of $10 million. The next line is the taxable grand list. This includes the total value of the property in town. As many of you know, we're undergoing a reassessment right now. I'm not sure how that'll all play into that. I think that's talk to Eric. Eric, what's the timing on that assessment? That doesn't necessarily roll into the beginning of this, right? This budget year. When will we get that assessment?
Correct. That assessment will be effective October of this year and will affect next year's grand list, but not this year's.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks. So basically the way the mill calculation is done is that, 1 mill is thousandths of that number. And the way we calculate the tax rate is, basically we take our money to be raised by taxes, you divide that by 1 mill or 1,000ths of the overall grand list, and that comes up with your estimated mill rate. Okay. This will all be finalized once we have the final lists and the final budget. But in this current budget, the estimated mill rate for next year would be 36.83. And as you can see in the line below, this results in a mill rate increase of 3.43%. So that would be the applied mill rate increase to the property in town that is taxed for the budget purposes. Okay, so that is the budget overview. So you guys are not seeing my screen anymore, right? Amanda, you stopped the share?
I
Okay.
just stopped the share.
All right, just wanted to make sure. Okay, thanks. So now what we'll do is we'll kind of move into our public comment portion of the meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to provide additional input, make comments, and the last opportunity really for the Board of Finance to get the real good opportunity, the best opportunity for the public to provide input into the budget before we go to our final recommended budget. We do have one last Board of Finance meeting next week. We will be wrapping it up at that point. We have full intention to doing so, and moving that final recommended budget on to the May 6th town budget meeting. Okay, before we move on to the public speak, just want to give the rest other board members an opportunity to provide any more input. Does anybody have any? Okay, hearing none. I guess, Amanda, if you could go around and see who from the public would like to provide some input or ask questions.
All right, here we go. First up, we have Georgette Conrad.
Did you say that the mill rate would be 36.83 for the 21-22 budget year? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, I was flipping behind screens on a small laptop, so I had to get back to it. Yes, that is the number, Georgette.
36.83, okay.
Anything else?
Okay, thank you, Georgette. Next up, we have Wally Barton.
You're muted, Wally. Well, there you go.
I'm muted now. No comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Person.
I'm all set. Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for being here. Jed Larson.
I guess to provide my only input would be, I'm concerned that the town capital and services budget's a little too low for what we need to do. And I'm still concerned about the increase in the Andover Elementary School. My personal feeling is, from what I could see, we've still got 5 classrooms with 10 people, 10 students per classroom there. And I'm not convinced that that's the best way to spend our money. That's it.
Okay,
Thank
thanks,
you, Jed. Jerry Creme.
I would like to thank the Board of Finance for the hard work you've done. And I think the residents of the town need to appreciate everything that you do to put together a budget, present it, and I think you look out for our interest. And I want to thank you for all your work. That's it.
Thank you, Jerry. Kathy Palazzi and Mike Palazzi. Mike and Kathy, you are unmuted if you would like to participate.
Can you hear me, Amanda?
Yes.
I said that I wanted to thank the Board of Finance. I felt that they gave a best input they could. The budget was, it's what it is. And I wish we had more for the roads in the town. We have a lot of repair work to do. I would like to have seen that happen hopefully next year. You have anything?
No, I'm all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine Bacard, and I also see Don there too.
You're muted.
Just unmute yourself, Elaine.
Sorry, having a hard time figuring out what to click. Anyway, I know because I've been doing this for several years, being on the Board of Selectmen for 9, that this is always really tough. And we have a lot of things that have to get done, and we don't want to kick things down the road at all. And I know that this will take care of, what has to be taken care of. But as the chairman of the Economic Development Commission and a member of the Sustainable Connecticut group, it's really tough to not have any portion go toward growth of town, putting in some kind of environmentally safe solar panels, kind of doing things that go ahead and make the town attractive for people to move to and work in. There's never any money for that. And I hope that in the future, we'll be able to, at least through grants, working with the state, the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, whatever, to go ahead and try to take care of those needs. But I know you have to do what you have to do. Thanks.
You.
Thank you. Kathy DeRozier.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for your time. And again, thank you for all your work on the budget. I know it's grueling. It's grueling to put this stuff together, but you did it. I do think the school budget is high for the amount of children that are in the school system. You're half filled over there. And I believe in an excellent education, putting 2 kids through this program, but it's high. And the classrooms are small, too small. As a parent, I wouldn't want my children in classrooms that small, to be honest with you. I do think the school is becoming unsustainable for this small community. Regionalizing that elementary school is, something we're going to be faced with if we go down to 100 kids. We're down to what, 140, 150 kids in the school now?
I think it's a little higher, but yeah, it's small.
Right, and in the school houses 400 plus kids. So we're below the halfway mark. So we have to be real about where we're going with that. I just wanted to say that piece. The other thing is, as you well know, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, the roads. I know the roads in some areas are being looked at, and I know the other roads that need to be done are long, very poorly maintained roads, because it's my understanding through my conversation with Eric that we're fixing the good roads. We're not going to fix the bad roads. It makes more sense to fix good roads and not bad roads. So I don't understand that philosophy, but I'm hoping that over time we can see all the roads get fixed, because it's, everybody deserves to live on a decent road, not just paving over and over and over the same roads. With that said, I don't understand, or I don't know if the board did this. Why aren't we bonding for the roads, the bridges, and getting ourselves ahead of all of this, so you're not nickel and diming the community year over year? Being on the Board of Selectmen, we couldn't move things forward. We asked for 0 to 3% budgets, primarily because there was no plan, to be honest with you. So it seems like this Board of Selectmen and Eric have a plan. Well, why can't we put that plan together and consider bonding?
Can I just make a comment on that? I mean,
Go ahead, Bob.
it's not that bonding is out of the question for a certain project, but I mean, everybody should understand that bonding throws off a debt stream. And then, in our budget this year, right, we're just this year paying off the last bond we had on AES. So on the one hand, yes, you can bond, but then, and interest rates are low, so I'm not against bonding, but just understand that if you do that, it throws off this debt service obligation. You're not actually necessarily saving any money doing that. One of the things we're trying to do with the capital budget, there's kind of two things we do with the capital budget, right? We plug money into funds that kind of sit there until we need them. And then there's another portion of the capital budget where we're pretty much going to spend it right away, like the roads. But something like the community center or a fire truck fund, we're putting money away so that we don't have to bond, so that we don't have to pay interest on the debt. I mean, that's the thinking, at least as far as I'm concerned. You know, you could do it either way. I'm not clear on which one saves us more money, though.
But I would agree with Rob, and we have talked about bonding to some degree in the Board of Finance meetings. There's a lot of work and research that would need to go into that to figure out kind of the cost benefit analysis. And I think everyone in the town should who gets involved in this process should be very careful and consider, put under strict consideration. You're basically committing, our future town residents to big tax bills. That being said, when you're looking at a major expense such as the senior/community center, bonding may really be the only way to get over that hurdle to make sure that this gets done. And I think that we're all open to considering that. And in my view, that's absolutely something we need to look at in the next year or two. As Rob said, this is a great opportunity because interest rates are at historic lows. We don't know how long those are going to stay. And we've got some big things we want to get done in this town. So.
Well, that's exactly, my.
Oh, we lost you there.
Kathy got muted. Oh, you're back.
I'm sorry. So, yeah, I just think it's something I understand for this budget, you guys are already through it, but I do think it's something to move forward because I've lived in town 37 years and we've been crippled by money. We have not been able to do projects. We've not been able to move the dial. We've not been able to fix the roads. And, we're always playing catch up. And I just think, it's like buying an old house. Do you just say we're going to fix it as we go, or we're just going to take out a home equity loan and fix the roof and get this done and bite the bullet? I just think that smart financing, when you look at what other towns are doing, they are bonding. If that elementary school needed addition, we'd bond for it. Why are we afraid, and we have, why are we always afraid to bond for the town's needs? And I just think, something you should consider in future years, just to get us up to a point where we're even, the roads are good, the bridges are done, before we even build a community center, we need to get these things done so people can support them, because it's hard to support a community center when your roads are falling apart or there's so many dead trees or what, I just think we just need to get to that point, and we've never been able to do that in the town. So that's my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. It's an important point.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, Diane Grenier.
I'm all set, thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Valerie Bruno.
I'm all set. Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you. Richard Repay. If you would like to participate. Oh, there you are.
It's Ellen, not Rich. And
hi, Ellen. Go ahead.
I'm just wanted to listen because of what I've been reading in the paper. I'm concerned about certain things like the roads and the trees and the school budget. But I'm learning that this is my first time at a town meeting like this. And, I just really came to learn so that I can make an informed decision. And I want to thank everybody that volunteers to serve on all these boards. It's amazing. So I have nothing else to say, but thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Leanne Hutchinson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yes, I had commented at one or two earlier meetings that one of my most main concerns was snow plowing in the winter. And with the $10,000 cut, the way it stands now, I'm not sure if I understand that it could or couldn't be taken from the contingency fund. And if not, then where would this additional money come from if, we had a snow events over and above what we plan for on an average year? Excuse me. And as part of that question, anyway, if someone could answer that, because my other part of the question was going to be, is hiring somebody who's not already a public works employee on an on-call basis in the event that we have snow events that we're not planning for, is that a possibility?
Okay, I think from the first question that, yeah, there are usually, there's some contingency money available in just about every budget, so there's some planning that's available for that. And we can't go over the approved budget without going, through some, town requests, et cetera. But generally, we're going to have, I think, money available to handle, especially that relatively small amount. It's not insignificant, but it's not that material to the overall budget. So I think the Board of Finance would not have reduced the budget amount by $10,000 if we didn't think we'd have the flexibility to authorize additional money into that fund. We just wouldn't have gone there. But what we did want to do, given the fact that we did have contingency money available to cover these unexpected or unusual snow years, for example, we just want to reflect what the average year might be, rather than budgeting for, an excessive amount. We just, I just prefer to have that practice. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I think the board agreed. Eric, do you want to comment further on as far as the contracting question?
So the first part about it is that there, in any given year, that is, the snow happens early enough in the year, there's a chance you can cover it out of other parts of the public works budget. The second thing is in an absolute emergency, you could spend for that out of the town aid road fund, which is a separate allotment of money given to the town every year that's used for road maintenance. So we generally don't like to spend it. We wouldn't want to spend it on snow removal, but if we had to, we would. As far as hiring outside people, we do, per union contract, if there's a snow event, the union employees get called up first. On a bigger snow event, we do have one standby, actually now two standby people to help us plow. And they would also take over if somebody was sick or out for some reason. The public works supervisor also plows in the small truck, but if needed, he would get in one of the big trucks and plow also. But we're obligated to use the public works employees first, even though they're more expensive on an hourly basis than temp help, if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you both. That provides quite a bit more clarification. And I wanted to make a couple of quick comments about the town meeting on the budget on May 6th. Procedurally, I believe it's correct that adjournment to referendum is not automatic. The town meeting could vote the budget down and send it back to the Board of Finance, correct?
That's correct.
That's absolutely the case. Yeah, at the town budget meeting, that budget can be adjusted. So just because the Board of Finance has recommended this specific budget doesn't mean that's even the one that'll get voted on at the town budget meeting. There can be alterations to the budget made at the town budget meeting, per the vote of the attendees. But yeah, absolutely. Once the town budget meeting proceeds and that budget, whatever final budget comes out of that town budget meeting, that will go to the vote on the referendum, which has been scheduled. If the voters turn down that budget, then we restart. We try to come up with a different budget that is more, aligned with what the voters want. So absolutely correct.
Can I just
Go
add
ahead,
one?
Rob.
And so
quick thing? Just wanna add
attendees,
one really quick,
attendees
just
at the
point
town
of-
meeting can reduce but not add, correct?
That's exactly where I was going. Yep. You
Yep.
can reduce but not add at the town meeting.
Yep. And what that means, it's not department by department, but the overall number cannot be increased. And the Board of Finance took that very much into consideration with this recommended budget.
Right. So in theory, you could say, okay, you have a budget, you have two different line items, and you're going to increase one and decrease another by more, and it adds up to a cut, nets out to a cut. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can't do is increase the budget overall. That's just written in the charter, I believe.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Leanne. The next phone number we have is 860-977-3484. If you would like to participate, just press *6 to unmute yourself.
Amanda, it's actually Joanne Hebert. I had my phone as backup.
Okay, Joanne, if you would like to go ahead, feel free.
Well, can you hear me on the computer, which is better?
Yes, we can.
All right, we'll go that route. Okay, so first off, I just have to state that unfortunately, I don't think the almost 6% increase is going to fly. I realize a lot of work has been put into it. Cuts have been made, but he's trying hard, but 6% is 6%. Taking into consideration that the fund balance won't be used in the future, as Mark stated, and I get it. It's been so high, you know, when I'm looking at your history there and then 250 or whatever it is this year, I think 250, I don't have it in front of me. So that's more taxation. So again, I've got to stay true to what I've been saying all along is I've got to follow a few of the people, and I've been a leader in this, you know, the education budget really can cut some more. I would like to see 100,000 cut there. I think they can do it. I really do. They've got, you know, whether they don't touch classrooms, whether they touch something. I mean, we've all gone line by line. I won't go through it. There's places to cut. I know that the parents don't want to see regionalization. I'm not opposed to that, but you know, listening to parents that are current parents, my kids are in their 20s, so I'm good. They don't want to see regionalization, so we've got to do a little cutting so we can keep our school. Again, I've been a voice, very vocal at RAM meetings as well. 40% of the budget is RAM. There's not any other town residents there. There I am sending emails, speaking up. You know, the overall RAM budget is high. I mean, it's $30. They like to present their set. This I know isn't an Andover problem. I just want to speak to the public that's present. They do quote, you know, a 17,000 per pupil, you know, and some odd change. I don't have that in front of me, but they also, when you figure that out, they're getting an additional 9 million almost in the budget, you know, over and above their per pupil. So something can be cut there as well. We've all got to band together and try to keep that going. Again, I know that the town roads and trees, especially, I'm so afraid for the trees now. That's my main focus. I'm afraid something's going to fall on my car. We've got to attack the things. There's not a lot of whittling to be done there on that side. So, good luck. I know you guys all work hard, so that's my 2 cents.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Joanne.
Okay, Cindy and Jeff Murray.
We're all set, thanks.
Thank you. We have Joan.
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you. Marcy Minor.
Hi, how are you? I got in late, so I haven't heard everything that you guys talked about. But I agree with Joanne Ebert, that the school budget could be reduced a lot. It's been continually to gone up and the number of kids are going down. So, and we haven't really, doesn't feel like there's a lot of transparency there. I saw that there's flags on the lawn, so the lawn has been treated, but we don't really know by who, how much you're paying, and what good is it doing. I haven't noticed any improvement, and I know that they were doing it last year. So being that I'm in the business, I notice things like that. And I know that we have a lot of intelligent people in our town that could contribute as far as the budget goes, all these little details. So just my 2 cents. And I do think that a 6% increase is going to be, that's going to be a challenge. I can't imagine people agreeing to that. So.
Okay, thanks, Marcy. Yeah, just, yeah, the overall number increase isn't quite up there, but yeah, it's an increase for sure.
Right, it isn't 6%, but it's not insignificant.
No.
Thank you, Marcy. And let me just double check to make sure we are all set here. Oh, Georgette, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that having served on boards and the Board of Finance, I do agree with Kathy DeRozier that we should think about bonding. But I wanted to thank all the members for their hard work because I know what a thankless job it is. And I want to thank Amanda because she's always there to help us out when we need it. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Georgette.
Full-throated yes to that.
Yes.
Well, last but not least, I was going to just share that I wanted to thank the Board of Finance. Really hard work, and everyone obviously appreciates your time and energy. And thanks to Mark Brinker for hosting very nice meetings. So that is all.
Thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, we had a great turnout tonight. I also wanted to share that the presentation that Mark and Eric put together will also be uploaded to the town website, along with everything else on the budget page. So
Yeah, Amanda's done a nice job of kind of putting together, and then there may have been other people involved too, of putting together all of the documents from AES, RAM, and the town that are going to affect the spending plan and budget for next year. It's all on one page on the town website. So once you get there, basically everything that you'd want to know and probably a lot more are right there. So good point. Thanks, Amanda, for bringing that up. Okay, we're all set with public comment then, Amanda?
it seems like Joanne Hubbard just put a question into the chat. Will you be putting up anything asking for town input on the website like last year?
Yeah, we do not have a plan to do that. Basically, I think that was done last year because the concept of this virtual meeting was so new to everybody that we didn't feel like we had a real good mechanism to collect enough input from the town. The other piece of that is we were being super careful to try to provide every opportunity for input that we could, since it was the Board of Finance making the decision instead of the town residents. So we decided that that probably wasn't necessary this year, but any town resident at any time, obviously, not only can you attend the meeting, or if you can't attend the meeting, you can always send an email to any of us that can be shared and provide your input that way. Or a phone call or whatever mechanism works best for you. Okay, so if we're all set for public comment, we'll move on to the next item really, which is adjournment. But before we do, does any other member of the Board of Finance have anything they'd like to bring forward or comment on?
I'll just say this one thing very quickly. We've already hit on this point. Regardless of what you think of this budget, and I personally support it, I would just say that we all have to understand that the fund balance situation being what it is, next year, all things being equal, which they may not be, we're not going to be pulling another $250,000 out of fund balance. Just know that. Wherever you go with that is your call. But just know that we're not going to be drawing down that much money again, unless some Deus Ex Machina happens and we get a windfall. We are basically at our target now after this budget for our fund balance. And that's important to understand, because that means that whatever the shortfall may be or what have you, we're going to have to raise other ways, whether it's grants or taxation. FYI.
It's a good point, and we'll be making that again, I'm sure, when we do the town budget presentation on the 6th. Thanks, Rob. Okay, lastly, I guess I'd like to just appreciate everybody's patience. It's 1 a.m. here. Well, actually, later than that, it's now 2:15 in the morning.
Yeah, you're pushing
Germany.
2:30.
So I'm usually an early morning person, not so much a late person. This is just complicating things. So if I'm stumbling over my words, I appreciate your patience. Thank you, everybody. Louise, did you have a question or
Yeah,
comment?
I
Yep.
did. I just wanted to let everybody know too about the YouTube presentations. If anyone has any questions from the town as to how we got to what we got to, they're very, very helpful. I've been listening to quite a few of them, and it's a good resource as well.
Good. That's a good point. Thanks, Louise. Okay, I guess
That's a really good point. And I guess, sorry, Mark, I just wanted to share that on our town website, we have a link where you can sign up for notifications. You can choose from various categories, and we have been sending out budget information and other important updates through that. So spread the word, encourage people to sign up. It's a great way to get the information to our people.
Okay, good point. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, unless any of the board members have anything else they'd like to add, we could entertain a motion for adjournment.
I will so move.
Okay, Rob motions to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Kurt seconds. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. I'd like to thank everybody for your attendance, and I hope we'll see you in a couple of weeks at the town budget meeting.
Mark, thank you so much for attending at 2 a.m. Will we see you on normal time zone next week?
You will. I will be flying back to the States on Saturday. So
nice.
You know, I will hopefully be adjusted fully.
I hear you.
To the
Thanks.
time zone. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.